Let's talk about the Boston Tea Party. So what's the problem with tea? Well, for years, the colonists had avoided a British tax on tea by smuggling in Dutch tea through the Caribbean islands. In 1773, British Parliament passed the Tea Act. They allowed the East India Company of Britain to sell tea in the colonies at an extremely low price. This Tea Act made British tea, even with the tax, much cheaper than the smuggled tea from the Dutch in the Caribbean. The colonists hated this tax because they had no representation in Parliament. The colonists still boycotted the British tea, even though it actually cost less. Ships filled with tea from England sat in the Boston harbor just with nobody doing anything with it. Merchants refused to sell the tea. There was no place to unload it from the boats. You see, the problem wasn't the price of tea. It was the representation in Parliament for that tax on the tea. The tea from Britain and the East India Company was such a small price. The tea from the Dutch smuggled in from the Caribbean was a big price, but it didn't matter. They still wanted this tea because of representation. That's the big deal. That's what we've been talking about, is it's all about representation in Parliament, not the taxes. So the Sons of Liberty strike. On December 16, 1773, dozens of patriots in the Sons of Liberty boarded the ships illegally. They were led by Samuel Adams, who is John Adams' cousin, and dressed as Mohawk Indians as a disguise. So maybe the British, if they were ever caught, would think that it was the Native American tribe of the Mohawks doing this, and so they would be mad at the Indians. They destroyed the tea by smashing the crates and throwing it into the harbor. Hundreds of crates were destroyed. Thousands upon thousands of dollars were lost. This event is known as the Boston Tea Party. So how would Britain react? The British Parliament punished the colonists for the Tea Party. They closed the Boston Harbor. You can't go out, you can't come in. Nothing can leave this Boston Harbor. They also made it illegal in Massachusetts to have town meetings. You can't get together and discuss this with your friends. They also sent more soldiers to Boston and enforced the Quartering Act. So those soldiers were there to police Boston and make sure they didn't do anything crazy again. It's basically like the British are grounding the colonists. You can think of it as a mean parent grounding the teenager, sending them to their room, not letting them go and do anything, not letting them talk to anybody on their phones, and then they were just limited in everything they could do. These rules are called the Intolerable Acts because it was intolerable for the British to go through these punishments. They're also called the Coercive Acts. The colonists responded to the Intolerable Acts by gathering the First Continental Congress. That First Continental Congress sent a letter to King George to stop taxing them. The colonists also began training for battle in case a war with Britain broke out. King George felt this was the beginning of a rebellion.